Well, the title was chosen to attract more people. But of course, like Paul says, saying it another way, there are more women sex slaves than female combatants. Okay? I don't want
Pierre, thank you very, very much. You mentioned a couple of times how now there seems to be what you call a critical mass in the Security Council, which gives reason for some optimism about follow-through, since there have been several decades without follow-through on 1325, also a Security Council resolution. What are the measures, or what are the measures for monitoring the Security Council's follow-through? How do we know that the critical mass includes the 5 permanent members who individually can stop any progress through self-interest? So say a little bit about the process of executing and monitoring through the Security Council.
Well, with a special representative with this mandate of coordinating all the UN efforts for implementation of the resolutions, but also to work for pre-deployment training, to work against impunity, setting up, there will be a task force, as it states in the draft resolution, who will monitor all this. And there will be a report, regular reports to the Security Council. So it will be very much up to the special representative, how much fire there is in her or him, and to push through it. But the mandate, as it's written now, gives ample measures to do something really about it. So there is no way why someone can come in with a veto and get away with it, I would say. Yes, please.
So good to see you, yeah. Violence against women can be a consequence against conflict among groups, different groups. And I was wondering, from your experience in Africa, can you talk about the nature of that conflict among ethnic groups and why it's so difficult to resolve, which if it could be resolved more easily and quickly, we might have less violence against women?
Well, ethnicity is used, I mean, the experience I've had, the impression I have, also from the Balkans, that ethnicity is used for political reasons. I mean, it's not that people have lived of different ethnic groups close to each other for generations, all of a sudden they become enemies. Not like that. It is because of hate propaganda. And we saw in Cote d'Ivoire the impact of hate media. Terrible. It's very important that the UN has a UN radio in a peacekeeping mission to counteract hate media. But it's always, almost always, it is politically driven, policy driven, this animosity between ethnic groups, I would say. Do you agree?
On Broadway last season was a stunning play titled Rooms. And the essence of it was a woman who's raped, and it's set in Africa, is victimized and has to survive on more than one level. And part of the victimization is the attitude of her own people and her own society to her rape. And I certainly hope and commend that the United Nations is going to do something on a broad level. But what do we do about the attitudes of so many people, and in Bosnia also, that a woman who is raped is ruined for life?
Yes, this must be a national, a local issue, of course. And we heard in a conference we were at the UN the other day how somebody from Burundi said that her experience was, she was in Burundi herself, that when somebody had been raped, a young girl had been raped that was a baby, she, the person who mentioned this, asked the mother of this daughter who has been raped as a baby, "What do you want?" And she said, "I want you, the United Nations, can you work, do you know who committed the crime? Yeah, maybe we can find out. Then I want you to find this guy get him here and marry my daughter. That was more important for the social status than to, for the punishment. And this contradicts our view, of course. So we have to take all these things into consideration. But I mean, you need to deal with trauma, you need to deal with the reconciliation, whatever, and also with impunity. It's very complex, and it's not easy. And UNIFEM is pushing very much for these aspects that you mentioned, how to deal with it. It's not only to go in and arrest them, put them on trial, because it will not solve the traumas.
Let's give Ambassador, well, one last question, and I know students are getting ready to go back to class. So, Charlie?
Delightful to have you back here. You mentioned the correlation between gender inequality and poverty, and I'm wondering if you could spell that out a little bit. What's the cause of that?
Well, there is, I mean, it shows where there is gender equality, more gender equality, there is less poverty. It's a weapon for poverty reduction, because if you have active women in this case, then one could tell you more afterwards how you saw among refugees and internally displaced, you see passive men and active women, and therefore it is important also with poverty reduction. I get last bit because you had up all the time.
Thank you. Just very concerned with the fact that the political solution umbrella is taken away from the United Nations and then undertaken by NATO, which have apparently their own agenda. I served there for 28 months, years ago. They are a completely different group. So one thing, you don't need to respond, but just wanted to air that. And further, the issues of ethnic and cleansing, the superpower, ethnic superpower, wants to degrade the ones receiving violence by terrorizing women and by planting their seed into the womb of that woman, so it will be a perennial pain to the woman herself and to her social group. That's something that needs to be addressed, because a woman in that sense never gets rid of that pain or that stigma or miasma.
It's true. And on the first thing, I can say that in Afghanistan, there are 3 different missions from the international community. The American Operation Enduring Freedom, the ISAF, and the tiny UNAMA, the United Nations mission, junior partner there. These 3 missions, according to our research, undermine each other because the population gets confused, especially when they're born. Thank you very much.